This is a shir on Likutei Sichos, book 24, Chelek of Dalin. And it's a sikh on the month of Elul because the month of Elul is approaching. So fast. The month of Elul is approaching, which means Rosh Hashanah is coming. So when it comes to the month of Elul, one of the most important things of the month of Elul is an addition that we make into tefillah. We pray more than we would usually pray. So in connection with the fact that we have to establish, we have to daven more, and also the sikh is going to talk about the shlosha kavin, the three pillars upon which the world stands: learning Torah, giving tzedakah, and tefillah. We're going to see the correlation between them all. Okay, let's jump in. When it comes to tefillah b'tzibur, this is also a siyum. This is also going to explain the end of Masechta Rosh Hashanah, tractate Rosh Hashanah. When it comes to praying b'tzibur, praying as a community with a minyan, that's one of the most impactful and important ways that one can daven. We find an argument between the Chachamim and Rabbi Gamliel in the last Mishnah of Masechet Rosh Hashanah. The Chachamim says, "Kishem sheshliach tzibur chayav, kach kol yachid v'yachid chayav." The same way there's an obligation. How do we do it? The shliach tzibur, he says the whole tefillah, but the same way he has an obligation to say the tefillah, every individual also has an obligation to first say it. Because everybody has a personal obligation to say. Yeah, Rabbi Gamliel says no. There's a communal obligation, and therefore Rabbi Gamliel shliach tzibur motzi et hara b'yedei chovatam. The shliach tzibur, the one who's being sent by the community, by the congregation, he says it, and everybody else fulfills their obligation through his saying it. Okay, and so this is an argument. The Gemara fleshes out the argument. It brings a braita which has the following continuation of the discussion. The Chachamim told Gamliel, 1 second, you say that it's enough that the Shaliach Tzibur, the Chazan, the one representing the congregation, davens, and the individual doesn't need to daven, but going to any synagogue, you'll see that also the Tzibur, I mean, we know practically that the individuals do pray. Why is that? Amalem, so Gamliel answered them, that's technically to give the Shaliach Tzibur time to prepare his rendition of the prayer. So he reads it through, and everybody else reads it through silently while he's reading it through silently, and now he's ready to do the loud rendition to say it for everybody. So they told Rabbi Gamliel, 1 second. So Rabbi Gamliel now asked them, according to your opinion, that the Shaliach Tzibur, that everybody has to pray for themselves, and the Shaliach Tzibur does not fulfill their obligation for them. So why do we have a Shliach Tzibur? He says that's in order to have somebody who's not able, who's not proficient in prayer, to be able to fulfill his obligation through the Shliach Tzibur. Yeah, they didn't know how to read. Even if they knew how to read, they may not have had Sidurim. They didn't have books, so they didn't know how to say all the brachas. And let's take into account that this discussion is talking about Rosh Hashanah, particularly. Rosh Hashanah is a longer davening. You have to really know your stuff. So they asked him, so why is there Shliach Tzibur? So he says, because there's some people that are not baki. For those that are not able to pray on their own, there's one person, there's a designate, the Chazan, who says it and has everybody fulfill their obligation by listening to him. They told him, I'll tell you. So that's what Rabbi Gamliel asked them. Why a Shliach Tzibur? He said, for those that aren't able. So Rabbi Gamliel told them that the same way that he's making the ones that are not baki, that he's taking care of the obligation of the one that doesn't know how to pray, in that same way, he can already be moitzi, he can already have the obligation fulfilled for the one who does know how to pray. So we say, anyway, this is the argument. We want to understand, we want to get into the rationale behind the machlekas. So let's hear. So it seems clear. If you want to sum up the machlekas, says the Rebbe, according to the Chachamim, the main thing is the community is davening, praying together, and that everybody is praying as a group, individually, but as a group, right? And what's the point of the Chazarat HaShatz the fact that there's a repetition of the Amida by a Shliach Tzibur is for somebody who doesn't know how to pray. On the other hand, Rabbi Gamliel obviously holds the opinion that the main thing is the prayer of the Shliach Tzibur. The Chazin's prayer is the main thing. It's just that before the Chazan says the repetition of the Amida, every person prays for himself. That's just in order that the Shliach Tzibur should be able to have time, lahazdir Shliach Tzibur, the Shliach Tzibur should have time to arrange the proper recital, the proper saying of his tefillah. So what's really behind this machloket? You know, whenever there's a machloket, whenever there's an argument, so how shall I say? Maybe it's like when you go to a doctor, we should never need, but the doctor can what the doctor tries to find is not to treat the symptom. He wants to know what's behind the symptom. He wants to go to the cause. Sure. What is causing the issue that you're coming to the doctor for? Treat the cause. So there's a machloket here. We want to know, what is their machloket about? What are they thinking? What's at the core? What's the rationale behind? So paragraph 2. What's the argument here? We could say that this is connected with a well-known question, and this is a question that could apply to life in general. And that is, what is more important? An abundance of quantity or a superiority in quality? Would you want more of something less or less exquisite, or less but something more,
it's a classic,
more quality?
Quantity.
Quantity or quality? It's a question.
almost everything.
When you go into a restaurant, do you prefer the restaurant that gives you big pilings of food? Or do you prefer the fancy schmancy restaurant that gives you have to look for the food in the plate? Big plate, nice service, elegant things. But you have to look for it. You want something in the middle, okay? But this is a question, this is a well-known question. Kamut or echut, quantity or quality? So we can understand like this. But listen to the way there's another argument between Rabbi Gamliel and his friends about quantity and quality. In real life story, the Gemara says when Rabbi Gamliel was the leader of the yeshiva, he was the nasi, he was the president, he was leader of the yeshiva, he would say, if you want to come to the yeshiva, if you are a student who your inside is not like your outside, don't bother coming. In other words, usually people on the outside try and act more pious, act more diligent, act more studious. But inside, we don't know if they're really at that level. He says, if you're not a fully high-quality yeshiva bacher, I don't want you, and don't come to the Beis Medrash. And then, when they removed him from his position, and Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah became the nasi, Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah said, we got to take away the guy at the entrance to the yeshiva who's not letting in people, and everybody came in. And that day, many students joined the yeshiva. In other words, what was the argument? Rabbi Gamliel wasn't being, God forbid, cruel, didn't want to let people in. Rabbi Gamliel said the main thing of the yeshiva is the quality, the superior quality of the boys, of the talmidim, of the students that attend. I want to have good talmidim. So that's why he only let in the fewer, but more quality. However, his friends, which included Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah and Rabbi Yeshua and Rabbi Akiva, in other words, they would be called the Chachamim in this instance, they hold that having a larger quantity is more important, even if it comes at the expense of having lower quality. And that's why they said, let into the Beis HaMedrash, let into the house of study. Also, Talmidim, students who are not at the high level where their inside fully matches their outside. Yes, maybe they make a better presentation outside, but inside they're not fully as holy as they look from the outside. In other words, they still have a where to grow, because the main thing is just bring in more boys. More Talmud, Lavdafka boys, could be older people also. Bring in more Talmud and more students. Even though that's going to cause a decline in the overall quality of the student body that you have. So according to this, we could say that this is the machloket here. Rabbi Gamliel says the main thing is the tefillah, the prayer of the Shliach Tzibur, the one who's leading the service. His friends say, the Chachamim say, no, the main thing is the prayer of the tzibur, of the community. What do we mean? Paragraph 3. when we talk about a tzibur, when we talk about the special kedusha, the special sanctity that happens when a tzibur, which means a community, 10 people come together, there's two things that happen. There's quality and quantity. And both of them are valid. In other words, first of all, a tzibur, when you have a minyan, there is a quantity of at least 10 Jewish people together. Then what happens is, besides for there being 10 individuals that are together, there now becomes a new entity called a minyan. It's called an Eidah Kedosha, a holy society, a holy congregation, which is interesting. In other words, if there's one person, two person, three people, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, it's nice. You have 9 people. When the 10th comes, wow, you have 10, but you also have a new entity. It's like bing, a new halo on them. They're the entity called a minyan, an Eidah Kedosha, a holy society which Hashem rests upon. So there's kamut, you have 10 people, and there's eichut, there's the quality of the fact that this 10 people now constitutes a new reality called an Eidah Kedosha, a holy community. And this is the difference between the Tfilat HaTzibur, in other words, when the congregation prays as individuals, even if they're 10, but they're each praying individually, versus the prayer of the one person who prays for them all collectively. The prayer of everybody as individuals within the community, you have many prayers, right? You have 10 people praying. So if you add up all the prayers, that's a lot of prayers. When you contrast that with the tefillah of the shliach tzibur, of the designate, the one who's leading the service, so you have less prayers, but you have the advantage of eichut, of quality. Because first of all, the Rebbe puts this in square brackets. Usually the person you're supposed to send as a shliach tzibur, if you look in the Gemara and in Shulchan Aruch, interesting. The last thing, one of the less important things for a shliach tzibur is to have a good voice. The more important things is he should be Yirei Shamayim. He should be spiritually. He should be a good person. Anav and Rahman, all the good things. Spiritually, he should be a person of good stature. So you understand that his prayer, as the designate, first of all, he's a higher in the classic and proper way. For example, we're talking here Rosh Hashanah. Usually, when we send somebody to pray on Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, we want to make sure it's somebody that is able to back up his prayer with his deeds, with his learning, with his piety. Besides for that, though, what does it mean to be a shliach tzibur? Shliach tzibur means you're a designate, you're sent as a messenger of the community. In other words, you're including all the mouths of the Bnei Israel, and you become like the mouth of the collective community. In other words, it means that everything that the Shliach Tzibur prays, it's really like the whole 10 minyan is praying through his mouth. So there's a concentration and a very high level of prayer where it's like the whole Tzibur, the whole congregation prays as one entity through this person. So that's a very high level, high quality prayer, even more high quality than the 10 prayers of the 10 people davening individually. So which one is more important? Well, this is the argument. If you're of the opinion of Rabbi Gamliel, the Chachamim, who said, open up, let all the students come into the house of study. We need more quantity. They say, we want everybody to pray. Don't just leave it for that one designated prayer on behalf of everybody. The more prayer, the better. Rabbi Gamliel says, no. Everybody praying is great, but I always look, where can I get the best quality? The most qualitative prayer is the Shliach Tzibur, who's the designate. First of all, he's a more qualitative person for prayer, but more important, he represents the collective Kedusha, that collective entity of a minyan praying through him. Let's just have his prayer as first choice. Okay. So B'meila, interesting points out the Rebbe that there's the same thing in Shulchan Aruch. Sometimes there's a discussion, what's better? There's sometimes where you could technically, like we have Kiddush. One person can make Kiddush for everybody. Right?
No, but
Or everybody can make it themselves. Or one person could make the mitzvah, the bracha of a particular mitzvah, and everybody can listen. Or everybody can make themselves. So in Shulchan Aruch, there's two angles to this. On the one hand, when one makes for everybody, you have Birov Amadat Melech. You have the king being glorified. One person saying for all the collective, they're all listening, and he's saying the bracha, there's a beautiful glory to Hashem. On the other hand, when everybody's making a bracha, there's many brachas. So we have again quality, quantity. Says the Rebbe that it's interesting that this machloket in the Gemara starts about Rosh Hashanah, because really, what is Rosh Hashanah? Rosh Hashanah is the head of the year. The day of Rosh Hashanah really incorporates all the days of the following year. And we're talking here about tefillah, about a shliach tzibur. Why is Rabban Gamliel insisting the shliach tzibur is the most important? Because he incorporates all of the tefillot. So you see, there's a correlation. Even the topic of the argument and the topic of the day, we're talking about Rosh Hashanah. Okay, now, so we have a beautiful concept. First of all, what we've studied here and we learned here is that behind every machloket, we have to look at the rationale. Now we also find that when we look at the rationale of the great leaders, the great Tanaic sages, Rabban Gamliel, we may find that this same belief system that they have, the same opinion they have, spills over and applies in other things of halacha that they also commented. You see how they're following the same, it's called leshitate. They're following their same shita, their same opinion. They're not wishy-washy. He holds that more important quality, and therefore he's going to lock the Beit Midrash, only get quality boys. He wants the Shliach Tzibur's tefillah. Rabban Gamliel's going for quality. The Chachamim, those that argue against him, say yes, but quantity also has an importance. Quantity also has a certain qualitative sense to it. We want to open the yeshiva, let everybody come in, and we want everybody to pray. More prayer, the merrier. Okay, it's interesting to point out that according to both, there is a silent prayer, there is a Shliach Tzibur prayer. It's not an argument that both exist. The question is which is most important and which one is the most important one. Okay. Today everybody prays, and everybody's able to pray because we all have prayer books and sidurim and so on. And yet we still keep the minhag also of having the Shliach Tzibur who's repeating. Except Arvit, right? Okay, paragraph 4. We spoke once that when we find an argument between the Chachamim in the same rationale in two or more places, there must be some chidush, there must be something new in each of the arguments which we wouldn't have known from the other arguments, because otherwise the Gemara could have, in other words, if we reached the heart of the argument, that it's really just a question, kamut or ichud, what's more important, quantity or quality? So it's enough that we know that Rabban Gamliel said it one place. We know, okay, that's your opinion. We'll know, so to speak, to how to apply it. It was like an Excel. When you have a formula, you just have to draw down you just have to, it just continues the same formula with everything. If we know Rabban Gamliel's formula, why does he have to say it in different places? We know what you're going to say. We know. If it says it again, it means that we wouldn't know one from the other. This is some beautiful expression in the Gemara, which says utzricha. When the Gemara brings that the same Rab said similar things in two places, says, why do we need both? We don't have time just to give 5 examples of the same thing. If you gave 5 examples, there must be a reason where each one is a little different. We wouldn't know this one by just telling us that one. Tzricha, we need each one to be taught to us. So the Rebbe is going to say here also, if there's 2 arguments about the Beis Medrash and there's an argument about the prayer, there's a tzricha. He says there must be a reason why we need to teach you both. Okay, so let's understand why the 2 cases, the 2 scenarios, prayer and Beit Medrash, is different. We wouldn't know one from the other. So the Rebbe explains like this. When we talk about a Beis Medrash house of study, what are we talking about? Since we're talking about a student whose inside is not the same as outside, that may really mean that he doesn't have the whole classification. He's not the right material to be a student. Because there's a saying of our sages in the Gemara that says, Kol Talmid Chacham, any Talmid Chacham, any wise student of Torah, she'ein tochok baro, that his inside is not like his outside. Remember, we said the outside people are usually more look better in terms of their piety, in terms of their tzidkut, than the inside. If somebody is not fully transparent and his inside is not as good as his outside, eino Talmid Chacham, he's not really a Talmid Chacham. He can't even take the mantle. He can't really be called a proper student. So I may, which is not the case in prayer. But when we talk about the prayer of an individual, the prayer of the tzibur, so when 10 individuals pray privately, that's not just kamut, it's not just a lot of tefillot. There's also an eichut, there's also a quality there of prayer. Because when 10 people pray together, even before you get to the shliach tzibur, 10 people praying together as a minyan, even in their silent prayer, is a tzibur praying. It's not like 10 individuals. It's like one community. So it's only that the prayer of the shaliach tzibur has an even higher quality, because it's like the whole community becomes embodied in one person who's representing them and saying their prayer. And therefore, but a student, when we talk about a student, it could be that a student whose inside is not like his outside is not even really a student. He just doesn't even make that grade. A tefillah of 10 people makes the grade, makes the eichut of tefillah. Shliach tzibur is even bigger. But a Talmud who's not inside like outside may not even be a Talmud. Therefore, if the opinion of Rabbi Gamliel would only be taught about Beis Medrash, that he didn't let students in because they have to be inside like outside, I may think that only there Rabbi Gamliel insisted that you need quality. Inside like outside. Why? Because if the guy's inside is not like his outside, it's not even really a Talmud Chacham. But when it comes to tefillah, we would think maybe Rabbi Gamliel would say, you know what? The prayer of 10 individuals as a tzibur is better, because it has two things. It has kamut, much. It has eichut. It also has the quality of being a prayer done with 10. So in other words, I wouldn't know that this is the opinion, that the opinion would be in both, would be also with prayer, that he would still be so insistent on eichut, on the quality of a shliach tzibur. That's why Rabbi Gamliel's opinion is also taught in regards to tefillah, in order to let us know is also in this case, it's worthwhile that the smaller amount in quantity, it's worthwhile to have less in quantity to get the greater quality, which is the prayer of the shliach tzibur, the prayer of the chazan. On the other hand, let's now flip it. There's a question. The question that comes up, and that is, maybe we'll get into this question. Yeah, let's ask the question. So in the end of the day, we see that what do we do? Rabbi Gamliel, according to Rabbi Gamliel, if that's the case, as a shliach tzibur fulfills our obligation, none of us should daven. Right? Yet the Rambam says that even Rabbi Gamliel, he admitted that those that are able, the Bekiyim, those that are able to pray should pray. And they fulfill their obligation by that prayer. But one second, what would that mean? If according to Rabbi Gamliel, the most effective, the eichut, the special prayer is the shliach tzibur, you're saying that the Baki, who's praying his own prayer, is not getting the greatness of the chazan praying for him. According to Rabbi Gamliel, the chazan's prayer is a collective of 10 going through one person. But if Rabbi Gamliel now saying, but if you know how to pray, pray yourself beforehand. So no. Anyway, we said that there's a prayer before, even according to Rabbi Gamliel. But if you don't know, then the shliach tzibur will be. If you do know, so then you don't need the shliach tzibur. You'll just be there. But comes out that you don't get that quality of the shliach tzibur praying on your behalf. So how can it be that because you know more and you're able to pray for yourself, you lose out on the special touch that the shliach tzibur, who has the power of 10 altogether, is praying for you? So Rebbe says, we must say that even though they fulfilled their obligation when they prayed silently, nonetheless, when they have an addition and they hear the tefillah of the Shliach Tzibur, they also get to be part of that. They get that additional advantage also. Can't be that because they prayed their own personal prayer because they know more, and now they're going to lose out and not be part. No, they'll also have the additional advantage, even though they already fulfilled their obligation. The Shliach Tzibur doesn't have to fulfill their obligation, but they also get that additional advantage. And in general, this is the way we look at it today. We pray. The Shliach Tzibur prays out. Interesting, I saw somewhere, I think the Ben Ish Chai says, usually that our Tfilat Amidah is silent, right? When the Shliach Tzibur repeats it, he says it out loud. Usually it's such a high prayer, it needs to remain silent. The Shliach Tzibur has such a high level because he's representing everybody together. He can say that silent prayer out loud. So we all have that additional advantage of the eichut of the quantity. Okay, but now let's go back to our Talmudic thinking. Okay, so we couldn't just have Rabban Gamliel's opinion about the yeshiva that he requires quality, because we may think that without the quality of being inside like outside, you don't even pass muster as Talmud. You're not even a Talmud Chacham. So maybe in other places he agrees that you can, if you have quality and quantity and just something else in greater quality, you can stick with the 10 people davening. You don't need the. But let's see. So okay, but if we would be taught only the opinion of Rabbi Akiva, of Rabbi Gamliel, about davening, that you need the superior davening of the chazan, right? So would we still know about the Beis HaMedrash that he requires only the superior students, the high quality students? No, we wouldn't. You know why? Because tefillah is different than Torah. When it comes to learning, when it comes to what's the meaning of a Beit HaMedrash? What's the concept of a house of study? A house of study is a place where niknit b'dibuk chavirim. It says about Torah that it's acquired through sticking together with friends, ubepilpol hatalmidim, and with the give and take, questions and answers to and fro of the students between themselves. And on the contrary, the students enhance the knowledge as the students enhance the knowledge, as the Gemara says, mitalmidai yoter mekulam. I learn from my students more than from anybody else. So one may think, but one second, actually, taking in students in the yeshiva who are not so perfect may actually add in the pilpul and the question and answer, because they're going to need more help. They're going to ask more questions. They're going to need more help. They're less perfect. Maybe actually that's better for the yeshiva. And actually, says the Rebbe in brackets, if you want to look at it from a perspective of musar, of self, what it teaches us in terms of our midas and so on, we could add if the Torah is about teaching, the word Torah is from the expression hora'ah, teaching, showing a person how he has to behave. So b'meila, I would think that maybe yeshiva is particularly for students who are not so high quality, whose inside is not like their outside. We gotta teach them. In other words, maybe the yeshiva is even more important for those that haven't reached the high level of quantity. So maybe, therefore, even if this argument, if the opinion of Rabbi Gamliel would be told us about tefillah, that in prayer he holds that the prayer of the Shliach Tzibur of the Chazan is superior, and therefore it's more important, I still may not know that in the yeshiva world he would also say aim for higher quality, because maybe in the yeshiva world it's better to have having lower level people actually adds to the atmosphere of learning, and also maybe that's really what the yeshiva is for, to take people from a lower level and to pick them up. And that's why Rabbi Gamliel, the Gemara has to tell us that even by Beit Midrash, Rabbi Gamliel is also of the opinion, no, he wants to have a Beit Midrash that has only top level. You want to come into his Beit Midrash, you have to be inside like outside, superior quality. He holds all the way. Eichut, quality, goes over quantity. Okay. Now we're going to go on to paragraph 5. This question, what's more important? Remember the rationale. An abundance of quantity or a superiority of quality. This also fits with another kind of not dilemma, another kind of intellectual debate of another nature, like the Rogatshov the going of Rogatshov says at length in various places. And that is, what's the most important part of something? The chomer, the geshem, in other words, the matter, or the tzura v'tochen, the form. Is the mass more important, or is the form more important? Form over matter, matter or form. Which means like this. Let's think about it like this. If you are more concerned with chomer, with the actual matter, so then an abundance of quantity, you have more. You have let's go back to the restaurant. You have more food on that plate. Chomer, you have more substance on the plate. But if you want to talk about the form, then what's more important is the quality. Yes, we have a lot of food on the plate, but I want to see the beauty of it or the quality of it. I'm into the form of it, not just the right. According to this, bigger is not always better. It's what's superior quality means. So it's matter or form or matter. According to this, we'll find another leshitase. We'll find another argument that we can explain between Rabbi Gamliel and the Chachamim in a similar concept. I think when you see this halacha, you'll see, wow. There's a halacha. We all know the halacha that when somebody comes to somebody else, says, "You owe me $100," and the guy says, "I only owe you 50." The Torah says, and that's a classic case. It's called modeh b'miktzat. You have partially admitted. You need to take an oath. The rationale behind this, the Gemara explains, is he really, if he didn't owe him anything, he would deny everything. He wants to deny everything here, but the guy lent him 100. He owes him 100. He can't bring himself to deny everything, so he's denying half. That's the most he can push himself. A person can't be totally impudent before somebody he owes in a cute way. Somebody once asked, it was once said, Rabbi repeated, I don't think it was said before, that and if somebody does totally deny somebody who's given him, it says ein adam. That means he's not a person, not acting like a person, but a mensch, person who acts like a person. Even if he doesn't have the money, he's trying to get out of it, he's not going to deny everything. So the Torah is telling us he denies half, and he admits to half. Tell him he has to make an oath. Once he has to make an oath, he's going to say, you know what, I'm not going to make an oath. An oath is going to force him to own up and to come and pay that which he has to pay. What happens if he went to his friend and says, "You owe me 100 wheats"? The guy says, "No, I don't. I owe you 50 barleys." What happens then? Does he have to? Is it the same rationale? So it's an argument. The Chachamim say, no, you're only obligated to make an oath when the admission is the same type, is in the same species, the same currency, the same kind of thing, like the claim. In this case, he said, you have 100 wheat. He said, no, I don't owe you 100 wheat. I owe you 50 barley. The two unrelated claims. There's no obligation for, it's not called modeh b'miktzat. That's not what the Torah spoke about. He's not obligated to swear. Rabbi Gamliel says, no, even if it's not the same species, I asked you for 100 wheat. It's worth $100. You admitted to 50 barley, which is worth $30. You admitted partially. You got to make a oath. What's the machlekes? What's the rationale behind this argument? We can say the rationale is exactly this. What's more important, the matter or the form? Kamut, quantity, or eichut, or quality? In other words, the reason why I would say that in order to be obligated to swear, you need to have an admission in the same species as what the claim was, is because if I admit to something, if the guy admits that he owes something, but it's not what was claimed from him, it's just, hello. It's he if you look at the wheat, he denied owing wheat. He claimed 100 wheat. He said, I don't owe you any wheat. I owe you barley. So how can you make him make oath? Making oath is only when you partially admit. He didn't admit when you partially admit to the claim. The claim was 100 wheat. He said, I don't have wheat. However, if you look at it from the perspective of if, however, if you look at the claim as not being so, don't look at the claim as being a claim of wheat. Look, if you look at the claim, not from the matter, but from the form, what is meant by this by this claim? Not what is the actual claim. The actual claim is wheat. But what is the tsura? What is the meaning of this claim that he has? A monetary claim. Doesn't matter. What does it matter if it's bitcoins, or it's you owe me 100 wheats, or you owe me 100 barleys, or you owe me 100 marbles? Who cares? I'm saying that you owe me $100 or whatever that value is. Look at the tsura, look at the eichut, look at the quality of the thing. Don't look at the actual thing. Look at what it represents. What does it represent? Money. So I said, you owe me 100. You said, no, I don't. I only owe you 30. Because 50 barley is not worth the same as 50 wheat. It's less. You owe you 30. So there is an admission. He asked him for 100. He got back 30. He admitted to 30. He should make you understand? And this is the argument. Right? Who did we say? We said the Chachamim say, look at quantity. So Chachamim say, 1 second. You want to look at quantity, which means you want to look at the chomer, you want to look at the actual substance of the thing. He spoke about wheat, and he responded about barley. There was no admission to wheat. But Rabbi Gamliel says, no, don't look at that. Look at eichut, look at the tzura, look at the concept. The concept is he claimed something of value of $100, and he admitted to something of value of $30. So you have an admission. It depends how you look at it. And again, we have Rabbi Gamliel following his opinion, and the Chachamim following their opinion. It's beauty that you see that the lines of reasoning follow through Shas, and people like the Nogit Shavago and the Lubavitch Rebbe, when you look through the 60 volumes of the Gemara like that, you see the symmetry for every person. And then when you learn Kabbalah and you see that this is all going based on the source of their soul, Chesed, Gevurah, Tiferes, it's on every level the Torah is exact, and it filters down into the way these great sages are behaving and the way the things they're saying, and right? Okay. Says the Rebbe, 1 second. So we just brought in another argument here. But why do we need this argument? Wouldn't we already know couldn't we predict what they would say about this argument based on the other information we have from the other arguments? Now it gets a little, well, you have to be holding. It's like juggling, like three. Till now we were juggling 2 marbles. Now we brought in another ball, and now we have to start juggling 3 balls. Why do we need all 3? Paragraph 6. So the chidush, the innovation in this argument, over the other arguments, is like this. First of all, when we talk about the Beis HaMedrash, both other arguments were talking about things of mitzvah, whether it's Torah, coming into the house of study, or whether it's tefillah, prayer, objects of mitzvah. I would therefore maybe say that the fact that Rabbi Gamliel pays attention so much to quality is because we're talking about kedusha. We're talking about coming into study Torah in the house of study. We're talking about tefillah. They're the whole, so important to talk about eichus, to talk about superior quality. Quality is what's important, right? Talking about regular stuff, I would think maybe, maybe it's just a regular thing, and therefore I don't need to, I wouldn't look at this argument. He took 100, he asked for 100 wheat. He said, no, I only owe you 30 barley. Maybe there he would say, yeah, look, this is wheat, this is barley. Don't look at the content, don't look at the quality, don't look at the fact, don't make it abstract in the tzura. The chomer is more, what is the reality? The tzura is more, what is that? What does it mean? What's the abstract? What aura does it have? No, maybe here it just says, look at the reality. He asked for wheat. He responded about barley. Unrelated. There's no oath. That's why he has to tell us here. No, even here also, he says, no, I'm also insistent that even here I'm looking at quality. I'm looking at the tzura. I'm looking at what it means, not just at the substance. I'm looking at the form. Therefore, I skipped over a little point here, and I'm about the Suda, the Gemara in Masechta Beitza, but I didn't look it up, so I'm sorry. I did skip it over, I know, but my apologies. Al Kapanim. So now, and the same way going in the reverse, if we just had this argument about the Chachamim and Gamliel about the claim of wheat and admission of barley, we wouldn't know. And the Chachamim there are insistent that we need to look just at the quantity, just at the matter, just at this is wheat, this is barley, then don't go together. Don't look at the abstract, at the tzura. It wouldn't be if we just knew what the Chachamim was saying here, we wouldn't know. But maybe when it comes to Torah and Tefillah, they do insist on quality. They do say that quality is more important because it's holy things. So that's why we need this to be spelled out in all three places. Now we're going to get into something a little bit more complex. Complex because it's going to touch on some psychological things, I think, that we want to study. Paragraph 7. Same way we find this opinion between the opinion of Rabbi Gamliel and the Chachamim about the first two pillars. We said Rabbi Gamliel had his opinion about letting people into the house of study. That's Torah. We said he had his opinion about the prayer of the Shliach Tzibur being superior. That's Tefillah. The Chachamim thought differently. In both of these places, we have the argument quantity over quality. Also, there's a third pillar that the world stands on in Torah, Tefillah, and Gemilut Chasadim, charity, charitable deeds. The Gemara, there's an argument on the pasuk that says, the pasuk in Mishlei that said, "V'chesed le'umim chatat," which literally means the kindness of the nations is sinful. So Rabbi Eliezer says the kindness that the nations do, and here in brackets we say the idolaters do, those that are against Hashem, it's a chet, it's a sin, because they're only doing it to make themselves big. Rabbi Yeshua says, every tzedakah that they do, they only do in order that their kingdom should continue. It's self-centered. They do kindness because they want their kingdom to have longevity. Rabbi Gamliel says, any tzedakah and chesed, any charitable kindness that the nations do is a sin because they only do it lihitya herbo, they only do it to be proud of, to become arrogant, to have a superiority for the kindness that they're doing. Wow, it's wild. So the Maharsha explains, what is the difference here between Rabban Gamliel, who says they're lihitya that whatever they do is sinful because they're doing it to be arrogant, and the previous two opinions. So the previous opinion that says they're doing it lihitgadel, to become great, it's not that they're trying to become arrogant, because that's the same as what Rabban Gamliel says, lihitya they're trying to be arrogant. He means they're trying to become great. In other words, gidulah b'shanim she'arichu yamim, they're trying to have a greatness in years. In other words, that they should be able to live long. They're not doing it in a sinful intention. They're just self-centric. So the first The first two opinions really are saying, in other words, the first two opinions are saying that the sin is that their charity is not for the real reason. It's for reward. They should live longer, or their kingdom should extend longer. Rabbi Gamliel is saying that the sin is that their charitable kindness that they're doing is bringing them to arrogance. What's the rationale behind this argument? So we can say again, this rationale can be again the same subtle thing we discussed earlier. What's more important, form or matter? Chomer or tzura? Let's explain what we mean. To say that in paragraph 8, to say that the charitable kindness that the nations of the world do is not just a mitzvah, but the opposite, a concept of sin, is because it's done in a way that there's something lacking in the actual charitable kindness, and that's why it's called sinful. How could that be? What would be the actual lacking? So we know in tzedakah there's two parts. There's the actual giving to the poor person, making sure he has what he needs. And then that's the actual substance of the giving. And then there's the eichus, the quality of the giving it with a kind face, showing at the time of the gift, showing the poor person that you have empathy. As the Chazal say, "Hamefaiso bidvarim," to appease him through words, say, look, even if you can't help him so much financially, but at least appease him, be empathetic to him. And that's one of the main characteristics of tzedakah. Like the Rambam says, anybody who gives tzedakah to a poor person with a bad face, even if he gave him 1,000 pieces of gold, he lost his merit and his merit was lost. So now we can understand the argument to Rabbi Gamliel and his colleagues. Rabbi Eliezer, Rabbi Yeshua hold the main thing of tzedakah is the substance, the chomer, the quantity. You actually gave the poor person. That's why they say that since the nations of the world do charitable kindness, and they do it, but they do it for some kind of ulterior motive, to live longer or to have a longer kingdom. So therefore, it's an incomplete charity. Because if they don't get, we say, the Gemara there derives that if they don't get their reward, they have regret over the fact that they gave the charity. So that means that the giving, there's something lacking in the actual action of the giving. Because they're giving according to their needs, not according to what the poor person needs. They're not looking at what the person needs, they're looking about what they can get from the giving. Rabbi Gamliel is of the opinion that the main thing of everything is its form and its quality. And the same thing by tzedakah. The main thing by tzedakah is the empathy, the bahamafaiso, the appeasing him with words. And therefore, what is the chatos? What is the sin in the tzedakah and chesed that the nations gives? It's not that they're doing it for some kind of reward. Because according to his opinion, that's doesn't affect the main aspect of tzedakah. But in the fact that they're doing it to be arrogant, the arrogance that the giver is going to get, which means that in the quality of the tzedakah, there's something missing. The main thing of the tzedakah is the giving it with a kind face, the empathy, the appeasing that you do for the poor person. And that's only that's only possible when the giver does not pick himself up in a condescending way over the receiver. If, however, the giver is giving in a way that is condescending, that's the opposite of the quality of tzedakah in a qualitative way. This is a person who makes the poor person feel like a recipient from somebody who's a grand giver.
Is that considered tzedakah?
It's still considered tzedakah. I'm a little I must say I'm a little lost in this paragraph because we know always that with tzedakah, the intention is not as important. As long as the poor person got what he needs, the intention is not what's so important. I think so. I'm not. I need help in this paragraph. Not sure about the.
Yeah, but we're not saying like it's not final. It's like they show the size of Rabban Gamliel and so that's why it's still a debate.
I'm going to inject something here just in order to.
Looks like
There's
a-
something we're talking about tzedakah that nations of the world give,
Yeah.
and in the brackets we said akum idolaters. So it could be that this is only referring to those that are rebellious to Hashem.
Mhm.
If somebody's rebellious to God and gives tzedakah, what we're saying is that that's sinful. But how could it be? He's done something good. And the answer is because if he's done it good just for his own interest, it's lacking. Or Rabbi Gamliel says he's done good, he's done something good, but he's done it in a way that it leads him to be the opposite of the quality of what tzedakah should be, which is to feel empathy, and he's feeling condescending. He's acting condescending.
Maybe tzedakah.
איזה סמי? בא בזמן?
Requires tzedakah and need to receive it.
טוב. מה קורה, ציון?
The tzedakah is that,
איפה אתה?
and he gives the tzedakah to that poor needy person.
יאללה, הגיע הזמן. מחכים לך.
Or should it be really termed as, the distinction between the receiver and the giver?
Look,
And would you separate it by that?
I'm not sure here, but we have to take into account that this that if we want to look at it psychologically, it's almost in. If you go to a psychologist, he'll be able to point to you that everything good that you do, you have ulterior motives.
זה מה שאני גם רוצה לשאול, לא רק עקום, מה איתם?
Oh,
גם אנחנו
so you're
לפעמים,
asking why are we saying this only about the nations of the world?
כן.
And here's the chiddush. The Alter Rebbe says that the Jew has a neshama, the Jew's nefesh comes from a place where there can be, maybe not consciously, maybe the psychologist may again find your subconscious reasons why you did the chesed, but the Jew has an aspect of kedusha where his giving from deep down is actually connected with an altruism of giving. But it's not the topic of tonight's shir, and it's a lengthy discussion. But at any rate, for our purpose, and I'm going to move on here. For our purpose, we see that Rabbi Gamliel is focused on the fact that the tzedakah wouldn't have the quality of tzedakah, and it would lead to aggrandizement, to arrogance, is what bothers him. The others are bothered with the fact that the substance of the tzedakah will be affected, because if they're only giving for their own needs, in other words, to live long, or to have an extended kingdom, then their giving will be in a way where they're only giving based on what they need, not on what the poor person. The substance of the gift, the quantity of the gift will be affected. Rabbi Gamliel is saying their giving is a problem qualitatively. Okay. One second. Let's move on, and then we'll come back to questions. Paragraph 9. Also about tzedakah. So now again, always we have to say, if we've said that now we taught what Rabbi Gamliel holds and his shita, his opinions, so why don't we just teach about tzedakah and we'll know his opinion and all the other things? No, so it wouldn't work.
It's me.
צריך לעשות מיוט. אני עושה מיוט והוא... Okay, so also about tzedakah.
So, זה
Also about tzedakah, we there's also this concept that there's a tzricha, so we need to tell this why do we have to tell, why does the Gemara have to tell us this about Rabbi Gamliel's opinion in tzedakah? Because I would think there's added value to tell us this about tzedakah over the other things. Why? Because Torah and Tefillah, we know that when it comes to prayer and to learning, the main thing obviously is not the substance. Obviously, the main thing is the quality and the form. Torah is about understanding what's learned. And even the fact that we say that even a deep study one second, what does he say? In Yanni, ik heb verteld veel in the Egel Jerusalem. The main thing of Torah is understanding what was learned, and also that this is a deep learning that leads to deed, which that's a major component of Torah. I'm not sure how this fits in. Similarly, by tefillah, by prayer, the main thing is avedish believe, the prayer in the heart, the kavana, the intention to know. So we understand that quality is important there, right? Understand that there's importance in eichut, in form, in the depth. When it comes to tzedakah, I would say no. Tzedakah is the main thing, that the poor person should have what to eat. He should get what he needs. And therefore, one may think that the intention of the one giving is not so relevant. The main thing is that the poor person gets. Actually, we know that it says in the Sifri, if somebody loses a selah and a poor person found it, and the poor person went and used it to eat, the Torah considers it as if the person who lost the money has the mitzvah of tzedakah. Because in the end of the day, his money went to feed somebody. So therefore, if we told you what Rabbi Gamliel's opinion is only about tefillah and Torah, that quality is more important, I would maybe think that with tzedakah, he says quality is not important. The main thing is quantity. That's why Rabbi Gamliel's opinion has to be said explicitly also about tzedakah. To tell us that even here, Rabbi Gamliel holds that the concept of the quality, of the feeling, of the empathy that goes along with tzedakah is even more important than the quality, than the quantity. On the other hand, one second, couldn't we just tell you what Rabbi Gamliel holds about tzedakah, and we would already know if he goes for quality, even about tzedakah, where there's a poor person who needs stuff, so for sure when it's about Torah and prayer. No, I say no, I wouldn't know that. Why? Because when it comes to tzedakah, we're just having a discussion really in concept. Which is more important? Is more important the way you give? But if I say it's more that the way you give is more important, it doesn't mean you're giving less. It just means you have to pay more attention to the way you're giving. It's not one at the expense of the other. When we're talking about the Beis HaMidrash, one is at the expense of the other. Tefillah, one is at the expense of the other. If I say that quality is more important, I'm gonna have less students. If I say that tefillah is the main thing is the shliach tzibur, so now we're going to have less people praying privately, right? So therefore, if I told you by tzedakah that Rabbi Gamliel is so diehard, so holds that quality is so important, yeah, okay, but still give the same amount, but give it with the quality. But that so maybe when it came to other things where standing up for quality means less quantity, maybe he wouldn't stand up for quality. So that's why he has to tell us also about that in tzedakah and in tefillah and in Torah, he holds quality overpowers quantity. Paragraph 10. We could say that this chiddush, that this aspect of the opinion of Rabbi Gamliel, that he learns from the prayer of a shliach tzibur, of the chazan, that also a quality that diminishes the quantity, even so the quality is better. This also has to do with the persona of Rabbi Gamliel as a nasi, as a prince, as a leader. Why? What is a nasi? Nasi means the leader. There's only one leader. Just like a king. By a king, there could be a second to the king. There could be somebody called a half a king. But the king, there's only one king. You can only have two kings if they're in two different places. like there's kings of Yehuda, kings of Yisrael, but in the one environs, there's only one king. The reason is because the concept of a king or of a nasi, of a prince, like Rabbi Gamliel was a nasi, is a concept of quality. Because as we know that we look at the nasi, at the prince, nasi is not a prince versus a king. Nasi is the nasi means the highest person in the Sanhedrin, the yeshiva, the leader of the entire people. The nasi and the king, what does it mean? What is their entity? They are the essence. They represent the essence of the entire collective of the people. And that's why a king is not about quantity. It's about quality. There's one king. But his advantage, his virtue is the fact that he's the greatest quality. And therefore, that person unites everybody in his persona as the king, the highest person that represents everybody, that it collectively incorporates everybody. And that's why Rabbi Gamliel, who's a nasi, what does he say about tefillah? Remember, the other rabbis who were saying their opinion weren't nasiim. Gamliel is a nasi, is saying that this quality is so relevant, not just it's important, but it's so important that it's even more important than the multiple prayers of the tzibur. So if you have a choice that the 10 people should pray, or that the shliach tzibur should do one collective prayer, do the shliach tzibur's one collective prayer. That is such an important concept, because that's who he is. He is that one person who's that collective for everybody, that top quality person that represents the entire Jewish people. And this is also the difference between Rabbi Gamliel and the Chachamim. But they were only Chavrei Sanhedrin. They were members of the Sanhedrin. The concept of being members of the Sanhedrin represents a multitude of quantity. You needed 71 people in the Sanhedrin. If you have one missing, you don't have a Sanhedrin. So by definition, their persona was a persona that had to do with quantity of people, one of 71. Rabbi Gamliel represented that one qualitative person who represented everybody together. And that's why their argument, what is more important? An abundance of quantity, an abundance of quality, vice versa. That's why their argument is between Gamliel and his friends. Rabbi Gamliel says the main thing is the prayer of the Shliach Tzibur. The Sanhedrin, the other Talmidei Chachamim, they hold like, as members of the Sanhedrin, that you need a quantity. And so, yeah.
אבל זה לא...
This is the Sikha for now.
רק על המקום שלו?
לא, להפך.